Sweet. All right. So my name is Milecia McGregor, and today I'm going to tell you all about React PWAs, why you should use them, and how to use them. They're actually worth most of the hype. So just a quick overview of what we'll be going through first. So first thing, why PWAs are a thing, and most importantly, why you should care. The next thing is a lot of people will be surprised they already have like half of the steps in place on their existing web apps to make a PWA. So we'll go over the 4 things that you already have in place, hopefully. Then we'll go over the other 4 things you need to just drive home that PWA-ness. And we'll hit a little bit of the advanced PWA stuff just so you guys are kind of aware what's out there. And then we'll get into how to make React PWAs. So I'll do a demo with a brand new React app and one with an existing app, just so you guys can see that. But first thing, so why PWAs are a thing and why you should care. I guess my GIFs don't want to work today, that's fine. So, as most of you know, mobile traffic really makes up the bulk of internet traffic. So I think last time I checked, it was like some ridiculous percentage, 80%? Or maybe that's how much of the web is unsecure. Another. That's a whole nother topic. But you guys know mobile is huge. And most of you guys know that companies like their apps to be really fast and performant, and they like them to be reliable. People don't like stuff to crash or, go offline. And React makes it really easy to respond to the market with PWAs. They actually come built in with any app that you've made with Create React App. So if you aren't familiar with PWAs, you probably already have one. So we'll go over the 4 things you're doing right. Your site follows HTTPS protocol. Everybody knows that Google made that change where you have that ugly little unsecure thing if it's not. So I'm sure you already have that update. Then your pages are responsive across all mobile devices, because I know we all love mobile responsiveness. I'm sure all of your apps are responsive. And then your site works cross-browser. Again, I'm sure everybody's apps are cross-browser, especially IE. And then your transitions shouldn't feel slow. So if you're loading content or they're trying to go to another page, it shouldn't just stop. There should be like some kind of signal to a user that, hey, we're doing this stuff in the background. We didn't crash, I promise, don't reload, please don't reload. So stuff like that. Everybody's apps already do this, right? Yes. So these are the other 4 things that you need to really make them PWAs. Oh, quick question. How many people have worked with PWAs? Oh, wow. How many people know what PWA means? Okay, just a quick check. Just in case you don't, it stands for a progressive web app. So just part of the progressiveness is, with these 4 things I'm going to show you, you don't have to implement them all at once like you do with a lot of things. So if you want to gradually update your apps to be progressive web apps, you can actually do that without breaking everything. So first thing, all of the URLs need to load when the app is offline. So that means every page or every screen has to have a URL, right? So if you're working with a single page application, that can get a little bit tricky. But a lot of the time you can handle this with routing and just add a few more. Then there needs to be metadata for the add to home screen functionality. So the last thing you want to do is make a PWA and don't give it a logo. Nobody is going to open that, and they're probably going to freak out because they don't know what it is. So make sure that you have some metadata so that your app doesn't look like spam on somebody's phone, because they will delete it thinking it's a virus. And then the first load needs to be really fast. So how many of you guys have been to a rural area where 3G is fast? Not a whole lot. So I'm from Oklahoma, and there's a lot of rural areas there. So 3G loading is a really common thing if you don't think so. But one of the ways that you can speed up your applications is to do server-side rendering. That's, at least that's the easiest way that I've seen so far. And, oh, I think I combined those two. So every page has to have a URL, but those pages also have to load offline. So even if your page has a URL, if you don't have some kind of caching or data storage in place, it's probably not going to work offline. So keep that in mind. And then now we're going to get into the advanced stuff. So how many of you are familiar with the history API? Woo, sweet. So this is built into the browser. I think you use it off the window object. And basically what it does is it gives you access to like your history list or tree, whatever you want to call it. And that really helps when a user is navigating around and your app is offline. And if you have any type of navigation where you need fragment identifiers, if you've ever tried to handle those, they are not in the URL. So that also helps if you need to jump around the page with those. Then another thing, something that your app probably already does, because all of our apps are great and responsive. So your content shouldn't jump around. Again, when a user is offline, there's some data that you'll have stored either in like indexed DB or somewhere in the cache, and you don't want your page or your UI to start, kind of twitching and jerking around while it's trying to load because it thinks it's online. So just putting that out there. And then you need to let people know that they're offline. It's a little important. If somebody's using your app and they're trying to make an order and it doesn't go through, they're probably going to be kind of mad if they don't know they're offline. So make sure you have like some kind of notification, maybe just a quick pop-up like, hey, we're offline, your stuff doesn't work, connect again, and we'll load stuff. And then the last advanced thing I'll go over is related to informing the user, but this goes back to kind of don't spam the user. So just because you can push notifications doesn't mean you should. They know that your PWA is on their phone. You don't have to remind them every other day. So make sure you keep them relevant and make sure they make sense when you send them. So if you're telling a user that they're offline, don't show that when they reconnect, stuff like that. So the fun part, I'm going to attempt to live code. So I'm pretty sure you guys are all familiar with the Create React app. How many people have not used that? Okay, that looks about right. So just to make sure that my stuff actually worked, I've already built everything and all of the code is in place. And since you know how Create React app works, you're not really missing anything. But basically what I want to do with this new app is show you the stuff that React already includes to make your app progressive. So the first thing you'll notice in this public folder is that we have like this favicon and some logos and this manifest JSON. Ooh. So this is where you'll put all of that metadata. And the short name, I believe this is the one that shows up when they download your app onto their device. So that's like the label that they'll see when they look at your app. And then basically these logos down here, these are the ones that are going to get used for, well, your logo. When they download the PWA, it'll show them the logo on their phone, and there's some other stuff down here. You can play with the background color, whatever. But another thing, there's a lot of tools for you to use to make these different sized images. So you don't have to sit all day and edit images just to get the right sizes. And probably one of the most important things is the service worker. So how many of y'all have worked with service workers? That's a pretty good mix. If you've worked with them, you know just how interesting they can be. So it's a little bit tricky if you're handling a lot of data or you have a lot of items to cache, but for the most part, the service worker is pretty straightforward. It makes sure that when you're offline, it caches like static files and it stores any data that you need to store. And all of that comes with React just out of the box. You don't have to do anything. Take that back. You have to do one really small thing. You have to register the service worker. That's it. Usually when you do create React app, it has the unregister, and you just delete un, boom. You have a PWA. So on the browser, oh, it's so special. I don't remember them changing this icon. Do you guys remember that? But whatever, they changed it. So just a few ways that you can check your PWAs. If you go into the Dev Tools and go over to this Application tab, you can look up any service workers that you have. And right now, since we're running, which one? The new app, we have a service worker. And you see that it's activated. So one of the easiest ways to test that it's working is to just take the app offline and refresh. Woo, first live demo done. It worked. So this is just cached. The service worker just not reloads, but it makes sure that it serves what's in the cache and any data that you have in like indexed DB or wherever you want to store it. Let's see. So if we put that back, and of course you can't tell the difference because nothing changes, which is perfect. But if you had data you needed to load or update, this would be how it worked. When a user goes offline, you have cache data, and when they come back online, you refresh everything. So that's it for the new apps. Let's say you have an existing app. So this is just a little demo that I spun up for this talk. And basically, you can add orders to a list. So fancy. And really, all you have to do with an existing app, because I know they're already mobile responsive. I know that. So without worrying about that, a lot of the work is really done for you. And the main thing you really have to focus on is the service worker. You can get your images and make your manifest, all that good stuff. It restarted on me. Okay, so these are kind of the main things you need to do for an existing app. Gotta add the manifest, gotta add icons, and then you start testing that service worker to see if it's responding like you would think. So right now, let me make sure. I am online. My service worker is here. One thing you have to watch when you're testing PWAs is that you clear your cache. Because if you don't, you will spend so much time thinking that it is broken. So make sure you clear the cache. If you don't know about this, if you right-click on the reload button, you can just empty cache and hard reload. It's beautiful. So we see that all of my data is loaded, my service workers activated, and moment of truth, will it reload my data? Woo! We took it offline and it reloaded the data. This is the first time I've actually had a live demo go well. But let me show you a quick thing with this service worker. One One thing that was a little tricky for me when I started working with PWAs is actually getting the data to store in IndexedDB. It's a lot weirder than I thought it would be. But pretty much what's happening here is we're getting the URL for the service worker, blah. And then we set this just variable for our database. But then we make this request to IndexedDB. And this is kind of how you make a new database in IndexedDB. That's just the version number so that it helps keep track of kind of like, oh, they're offline. This is that version. Oh, they're back online. We've updated versions. So that's one of the ways it kind of keeps track of how and when to reload your data. But here in this request, if it's successful, we go ahead and set our database to like the IDB database object or something. I forget the exact thing, but we set it to an indexed DB database instance. And then what we do is set this on upgrade needed method. And pretty much what it's gonna do, if you have some, let's say you wanna add a new value to your IndexedDB database, and you want it to save it so when the user goes offline, they still have it. The way we do that is we take the database and we create a new object store. So that's pretty much like making a new table in IndexedDB. And then this is just like a little demo data, but you could send in data from the front end and it will store all of that just in IndexedDB whenever there's an upgrade needed. So whenever the app comes back online or whenever that database version gets incremented, this method will call. And then, of course, you probably want a way to return data to the front end. So you'll add an event listener. Ooh, guess I didn't update some code there. But you'll add an event listener for fetch. And depending on what all you need, you'll have it send data to whatever clients are listening. So let me see. Yeah, I made some changes to this before because my service workers weren't working. But basically what you'll do is you'll open up the database, go to your table, and get everything that's in the table, send it to the front end, and it reloads or loads in that data that you already have stored in IndexedDB. So not too bad if you're not, if you don't have a problem with service workers, it's not too bad. Okay. Then one really important thing is that you should check as you update your existing apps to PWAs, you should always be checking for progressiveness. So Lighthouse is probably my favorite tool to use for PWA upgrades, just because it gives you an actual number of how progressive your app is. So let me see if it will do that for us. Maybe not that. Here we go. So this is Lighthouse, and pretty much you can go over and look at more of their documentation on progressive web apps, or you can come in here and see how you use it through the dev tools. So basically what we'll do is go back to our page and go to audits. And run it. So it's doing some magic in the background. So, ta-da! It gives you pretty much just a breakdown of how performant your app is and just tells you what you can improve on. Like, it gives you a few metrics down here and some, little suggestions for what you can do. But Lighthouse is a really, really great tool if you're building PWAs. And with that being said, some key takeaways. So PWAs really make your mobile apps faster just because they kind of force you to. When you have to have a fast first load, it really makes you think about what's important for a user to see as soon as they open your app, because, well, that's what they're going to see. Hopefully, you remember the 8 things that make a PWA and that you're already doing 4 of those things, because again, we're all great developers and everything's responsive. And then I hope that you see how you can update an existing React app and how it doesn't take a whole lot of extra work, especially since your stuff's already responsive. So with that being said, that's it for my talk.